Hello, and welcome to the Would You Give Me a Stagehand podcast. I'm Toby Patan, and I'm a filmmaker based out of Boston, Massachusetts. In this show, I interview various professionals and colleagues in the entertainment industry and ask them for insights as to how they got where they are. I get them to share their experiences, struggles, and triumphs that comes along with being in the entertainment industry. Listen as I interview writers, directors, cinematographers, and entertainers in general, and pose the question, how far are you willing to go for a career in the entertainment industry? My first guest is Marg. They're really good friends of mine, and they have a focus in screenwriting, directing, and cinematography. We first met in 2016 at a week-long film intensive in New York City, and since then we have collaborated on projects and become pretty good friends. I asked them about their experiences in film school as a first-generation student, as we have bonded over how difficult and complex this can be as children of immigrant parents. Thanks for listening. All right. First of all, thank you for being the first guest on my podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm very honored.
We could start off by just having you introducing yourself, like talking about what you do, and yeah.
Okay. My name's Marg. I'm currently a oncoming senior at NYU Tisch Film and TV. Like every person that's in film school, I want to be a writer, director, but I've had to look for backups because, no one's really gonna ask you to do those things at my level, at least, so I'm looking to go into G&E, more specifically as a grip, maybe. I don't know. I wanted to work my way up to being a gaffer, but I tried being a gaffer on a couple of sets and it made me a little anxious, so I think gripping is more my thing.
So there are many layers to this, and I think that for you offer an interesting perspective given that you're first generation, and so that can kind of be complex when you kind of tell your parents you want to go to film school, because I know for me, my parents don't really know what that entails, and for them it's like they were supportive of me, for sure, but it was kind of just blindly accepting the fact that I wanted to do it, and then them being oh, you're passionate about it, you'll find your way. So it's just kind of what has been your experience in terms of that, telling your when did you realize you wanted to go to film school, and how did you tell your parents I'm not applying to liberal arts schools, I'm gonna go to film school?
I feel like I've definitely had a similar experience to you because, when I was younger, I wanted to be an anthropologist, and then I watched Princess Mononoke by Hayao Miyazaki, and it was this very cathartic moment for me because it was on a snow day, and I was just sitting in my dining room, and nobody else was around. I was just watching the snowfall while the protagonist Ashitaka runs across, or he doesn't run, he's on his red elk, and it just gallops across this mountain, and there's a swell of music, and ever since that point I was oh my god, this is insane. There's people that are making this and invoking these feelings through their art, and that's pretty much the moment I decided I wanted to do this for a living, and I wanted to tell my own stories as first generation. Actually, I think I might be second generation. I'm not really sure. But having moved from America to China and then back to America and faced a lot of challenges and people and realizing my queer identity, I was oh, well, I think I have a lot of shit to say. And that's when I decided to do it. Plus, I've always been into writing, so I just realized that people might be watching movies more than reading books these days. Sorry. But as for my parents, I come from a family that's very academic focused. My grandpa was the vice president of Sun Yat-sen University, and my dad and mom are both, well, my dad's a professor and my mom's a doctor. And growing up, I've always been surrounded by this academic headspace. Since like my entire life, they've both been going to school and taking me to like Harvard and various campuses, just STEM related stuff as well. So going into the arts is definitely not what they expected, I think. I remember when I was 2, I like took apart a pen and my mom immediately was like, oh, they're gonna be a surgeon. And ever since I was 4, my parents worked at the Harvard labs or whatever as like grad research students. And I decided I wanted to go to Harvard. Who knows for what, but there's always been this expectation that, I guess I'm not gonna go into the arts because of how I was raised and, the places my parents brought me and stuff. But I don't know. I feel like I've never really been that interested in STEM. I never liked math science is cool, but you know, I feel like I'm getting off track, but
no such thing.
It's definitely been like a weird road of acceptance. And even now, I don't think that they're happy with the path that I'm going. Like my mom keeps telling me I need to get a master's in like business or something. She's like, oh, maybe we still have hope that I'm not going to go into film. But I think they just want to see results. And for now, there isn't anything concrete, at least on my end. I'm trying, but it's hard as a student to get anywhere.
Yeah, that's why I'm starting this, because it's really hard to like be like, okay, yeah, I have this degree and nothing to show for it, because a lot of the time, like you spend a lot of the time working your way up and a lot of your time's networking before you can get to a place where you're like, I'm being paid full time to have a career in the industry. Like there's a lot of work that goes in it before you actually like are established. But also I forgot to mention how we know each other.
Oh.
Which we haven't talked about. We met I think almost 7 years ago at a film intensive in New York.
That's
so crazy. Just for the listeners, we go way back. By the way, do you still have access to the like short that we had to create as a part of that program?
I don't think so. I don't even remember. All I remember is we made like this website about the gay community in New York, and I was like the only gay person in the group.
Yeah. But your guys' team won. Your guys' team won the whole thing.
We did, because of the representation.
Well, okay, so yeah, let me explain. So basically, Marg and I did this program called New York... it was,
I don't even know, it was like film journalism.
Yeah, it was called like Envision. Like, yeah, it was like digital journalism film intensive program for a week. The only reason why I did it is because the school I was going to at the time, we had to take like standardized testing. I think it was the MCAS. And if you have like certain scores in certain parts of the MCAS, they like recommend you for certain programs. So I guess my like English section was really good. So they're like, oh, you might like this film program. So I don't know, it was pretty expensive. I didn't think my parents would care or want me to go, but they actually like were more invested in sending me than I was. Like they were like, oh, you should go to this. And I was like, okay, if you want to pay for it. So I went, and yeah, it was basically like they split us into different groups, and for some of the days we like worked on making websites. Some of the times we did audio. We learned about cinematography. We learned about writing a little bit. I would say overall, I learned a lot in that 1 week program alone, especially like for someone who'd not really known anything about film, especially in an academic setting. But yeah, the project I'm talking about is they gave us scene breakdown, all with the same dialogue. It's probably 20 lines of dialogue, and they had us all...
Oh, you remember a lot about this.
I do. I internalized it for sure. They made us all make like a short with all the same dialogue, and we just had to come up with an idea based on the dialogue. And I remember the short I made. It's on my website if you want to see it.
Okay. I remember I didn't even know how to use a slate back then, so I didn't know you were supposed to slate before each cut, and then we just didn't do the slate at all, and so all the audio was out of sync, and then when we went to go edit, I was like, I don't know how to do this, and also the TA we had didn't tell us that that was something we had to do at all, so yeah. I feel like ours was pretty shit.
I don't know, we didn't get to see all of them. We saw some of them. I vaguely remember the others, but also we had to edit in Adobe, I think, which is like, I feel like that's like one of the hardest ones to start with, especially for like people who've never really worked with that type of stuff before.
Now, Adobe has its own little language or whatever.
Moving along from your background and how you got into film and stuff, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a film school reject.
Oh.
Can you guess what film school I got rejected from?
Is it NYU?
It is. And honestly, okay, I only applied to 2 film schools, and I got rejected from NYU, and I got into the other one. But part of me is kind of glad that I didn't end up going to film school, because something that I assume is that film school is extremely competitive. Not even like just getting in, but like being a student and showing your work and learning. Like, I think filmmaking in general, it's about how can you be a sponge? Like, you're always learning, you're soaking up information. Like, even if you're not like in lighting, it's helpful to know how to light. If you don't know sound, it's like all those things are helpful. But I think, I don't know, maybe even more so now than 4 years ago when I was applying to school. I think it's a lot about authorship. Like, it's like, how can I be like really great instead of like, or like coming in being really good? Like, that doesn't, it's like peaking. Like, nobody wants to start off really good, because then you have nowhere to go. You can't get better. Although it's like objectively, like, you can tell when someone's really good at filmmaking, but it's also about like learning and, you know, listening. Like, people have tips and tricks to give you, like soaking that up and soaking that all in. So part of the reason why I liked that I did like a film program was because I was still able to learn. Like, most people were novice at like filmmaking, so it felt like less pressure if you made a mistake, or if you didn't do 3-point lighting right, or if you didn't sync up your sound. Like, so I want to kind of like know, like, did film school aid your growth, or did it kind of stunt it, given like its competitive, cutthroat nature?
I mean, I think it definitely did help, because we're always being forced to work together, and crew, everyone's always looking for crew. So just being in these classes where we have to make our own films, there's like intermediate and then advanced, and advanced is like your thesis, and intermediate is a class that it's sort of like in between the beginner stage and then like the thesis stage. So everyone's always making their own films and looking for people, and I think it gives a good opportunity to try out roles that you're not familiar with. And I mean, there are kids that just immediately know they want to go into lighting or camera, and they're really good at it, so that's what they stick to. But there's also the ability to work as an AC or a grip, or even a PA, just to be on set and get used to the equipment and what it's like to have those days. I will say, like, there's a lot of sets where I felt taken advantage of just because they're unpaid, and it's kind of like, oh, it's like the experience. But in a way, it does feel kind of fun too, because we're all just learning together, and it doesn't really feel competitive when you're there. But it does when you're like in a classroom setting or on social media and everyone's just constantly posting their films and promoting things. And I feel like I personally have a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, why am I here with so many talented people when I'm not producing something myself constantly? Or like, I have to constantly be working on set every single weekend, or I'm a failure in comparison to other people. But it's not like a direct competitiveness. I feel like no one's coming up to me and being like, oh, look at all the things I made. Like, I'm so successful. It's more so just internal, I feel like. And yeah, I mean, I think I don't like the level I'm at right now. Obviously I want to work on more professional sets that have like set hours and pay, because a lot of these student films are just paying us in food, and sometimes they'll pay for your transportation. But it is really cool when you land the one set where you get to learn a lot from the people involved. Like, I remember my first time gripping, and actually the set that got me to want to grip overall. It was in this little cabin in Connecticut with no Wi-Fi, and it was hailing, it rained, it was like every single weather issue that could happen, and I was running around on the outside of the cabin with the gaffer, and we were just trying not to let like the rain soak the lights. And at one point we taped gels to this like floppy, like this flag, and we just hung. We had to like put it on a stand and put it over one of the lights just so the rain wouldn't like break it. But that was like super fun, and I loved being able to just work nonstop and have like actually feel like I'm working and benefiting the crew. And yeah, that set I feel like has just, I don't know, it's like why I like doing film, you know, because it's collaborative, and I don't really like how competitive it can feel at times, especially with like, I don't know, as a grip, I've worked with a lot of asshole gaffers, and
Why is it always the gaffers? Like, gaffers always have attitude.
It's the gaffers and the DPs, like, and the ADs, they're all crazy.
I don't know, I feel like I've worked with pretty nice DPs. I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing.
DPs, I feel like they can either be super chill or super not, because like the production's depending on them, and you can either have a stick up your ass about it, or, you know, like, whew, like be zen. But I've worked with a lot of cis male gaffers specifically who have just like looked down on me, and they think I can't do anything just because of the way that I present, which has been really frustrating. I don't know if that's competitive or not, but that is like an issue in the film industry in general.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's definitely, I'd say, like, where I am now, like, the little experience I have, it's rare that the person directing is not a cis white male. I think I've worked with 2 directors who were women, and they were great. But I mean, it's like, it's few and far between. I mean, but that's good to hear. That's good to hear that it's not like excruciatingly like competitive at that level, especially because, you know, people are really serious about that stuff, and like it can also just like, I don't know, just like when something you're passionate about is like overly competitive, sometimes it could like make you not want to do it anymore. This kind of like is going off of what you were just talking about, but what has been your biggest film school eye roll moment that you've had as a student?
Oh, God. Let me think for a second. Eye roll as in like, oh, this is so annoying, or eye roll as in like, this is fucked up.
Eye roll as in like, this wouldn't happen if I wasn't in film school. Like this is like a total like film school moment. Like it can be even like people you encounter, like ways people like.
Oh God, okay. I hope I don't get like canceled for this or anything, but I'm actually there's this like house in my school. This apartment that 3 film bros have, and it's called Content House. Like they named it that. They have like, I don't know if they have I think they might have a social media. And I went there one time. It was like this big group of friends. We all went out and we went to this DJ set, but we didn't like the DJ. And so they were like, oh, there's something happening at Content House. And I was like, what the hell is that? So we went there, and it's just this studio apartment. It's not like very big. It's probably the same size as this room that I'm in. And it's like the kitchen, and then the 3 guys, their beds are all in a row. And on the walls are just like a bunch of film bro posters, like the Joker, whatever, Inglourious Bastards, I don't fucking know. Stuff like that.
And they all live there?
They all live there. They all sleep in this nice little row. And I went and I was talking to this guy that I knew from like Zoom school or whatever. And I think I mentioned that I liked Studio Ghibli one time. And this like flock of film bros just come to me. And they're like, Ghibli? Oh, I love Ghibli. And I'm like 5'2". I'm very small. And they were all like at least 5'11" and above. So I was just looking up, surrounded by this circle of film bros in like, I felt like a prey animal that was just like caught. And then I escaped and I found this guy who I knew from class, and I feel like we're like friends just because we're both gay. And then he was like, oh, I'm running the bar here. Do you want anything? And I look at the bar, and it's this little circular table with a bunch of alcohol on it. I'm like, okay, sure, pour me a drink, whatever. And then he just goes, sorry, bar's closed, but if you come to another Content House function, I'll make something for you. And I was just like, what the hell? Where am I? But apparently, like, they have really big functions now, and I guess they're successful in whatever they're doing. One of the guys, like, made a documentary about it.
About the Content Bros?
Yeah, one of the Content Bros. I met one of them because I just studied abroad in London, and he was in my class, and he was actually very nice, which I was surprised about. But,
wait, one of the Content Bros was in your class in London?
Yeah, he was in London.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
I don't know. I feel bad now, but at the time I feel bad just because I know this guy. But I don't know. I guess it's cute, whatever. It was a little cringy, but.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they have an Instagram.
I think they do. So if you ever want
to follow Content Bros, at content_bros.
I don't know their handle. They have functions.
It's at content_bros.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is it because it only has 82 followers.
Yeah, giving them promo.
Oh wait, then there's another called The Content Bros. That has more followers. I don't know, but we could probably confirm.
It's Content House Cinema.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, follow them at Content House Cinema.
Content House Cinema. Alright, well, you just mentioned studying abroad in London. How was that? Can you talk a little bit about your experience, what program you went with, what did it entail?
Okay, so I low-key went because I had... Oh, no. I can't say that. I had this roommate last semester, and we were staying together in a very small room, and it was not enjoyable for me personally, because I feel like he was going through a lot, and it was awkward for me. So I was like, oh, study abroad, that's an option. And I saw that NYU has this screenwriting program, in London. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's so great, because London's kind of known for theater and writing or whatever, and maybe it'll be nice to just get away for a bit. And yeah, I was getting a little claustrophobic in New York as well, and so that's why I chose to do that. Obviously, I'm thankful to have the privilege to study abroad in the first place. But yeah, it was like, how long was it? 4-month program, at NYU London, because we have a campus there. And it's in this, like, little building that's very, like, 18th century, or, yeah, 18th century, and it's like every doorway you go through, it leads to a different room. It's kind of scary.
That is kind of scary.
Yeah.
That's giving, like, Ex Machina vibes.
It's like, it felt like it was definitely haunted. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, because some of the doors there will just close by themselves, and yeah. But London was nice. I feel like I enjoyed it. British people are a little scary, and they really don't know how to walk. That was the one thing I had to get used to that really pissed me off, because they would just crowd on the sidewalk and walk at, like, a snail's pace, and they won't move for you, so you have to kind of, like, squeeze between them. Also, there's no right of way for pedestrians there, so when you're crossing the street, the cars they just don't care. They'll come straight at you. And the food, they don't have preservatives in them, which is good, I guess, but
but you're just eating beans on toast and sausage.
Everything I bought just, like, went bad so fast, which pissed me off.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, and it's like they also don't refrigerate their eggs.
That's so bizarre.
I don't know why, like, but it seems to be fine. Maybe it's the preservatives. I don't know. I don't know how they work. Yeah, I just, like, I wish that my school did more of a, what's it called, like an immersive thing with the British people, because we, like, didn't have any outreach programs, and I was just kind of stuck with the same 5 people, or not the same 5 people, like the same group of people, and we were all American, so it wasn't like we were, I don't know, meeting anybody from the British lands or anything. Yeah, it was cool to, like, experience the arts and the theater scene, and they have some really cool pubs there. The drinking culture is awesome, and I didn't realize that I liked drinking so much until I went there. And also, okay, I should talk about my program.
No, I was gonna ask, like, actually, I was gonna ask you if you were there when the Queen died, because I feel like that.
No, I wasn't, but I was there when the king was coronated. Coronated?
Oh, word.
Yeah, but I didn't go to that area at all, just because I don't want to deal with the crowd. It was a pretty uneventful day for me, actually. I slept the whole morning, and then I think I went somewhere at night, but yeah. And they had, like, British flags everywhere the week leading up to it, and they had these little things called, like, coronation cakes that they would just sell at every store.
That sounds really good.
I didn't eat one, but yeah, I guess it was a big thing. But a lot of, like, the young British people do not stand the king.
Of course, yeah.
They were like, fuck the monarchy. So
in America, it's fuck the patriarchy, but in Britain, it's fuck the monarchy. But yeah, talk about your program. What was that like? What was, like, an average day for you?
it was interesting. It was less engaging than I expected, because it was a feature writing program, so we would just, at first we wrote 3-page outlines and then 6-page outlines and then 9-page outlines. And we were this small class of 12. So we got split up into 2 recitation groups of 6. And then we would just read over each other's outlines and scripts when we started writing the scripts, and give critiques, that sort of stuff. But then once we got into the actual script writing, I think it was past 20 pages, we stopped having class, and the professor was kind of just like, okay, you guys go off and just do whatever you want and just go off and write your scripts. But there was a 90-page limit, so we had to get to 90 at the end. I don't remember. I think the deadline was April 20th? No, April 16th. And then, or maybe it was March. I don't remember. There was some deadline. And then once we finished our features, we had to select a part of it to be read by the actors at NYU's acting program in London, which I feel like the acting program is pretty cool. They have a joint thing going on with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and apparently it's a big deal in the acting world. So we had to cast the actors from there, but it wasn't a big pool of actors. I think it was maybe there were 15 of them. Some of them were from BU, actually. There were 3 BU students there. And then we just worked with them through rehearsals, and then we had a reading at this place called the Bush Theater, which was pretty cool, but I was very sleep deprived and also coming out of a depression hole. So my energy during the reading was not that good. But yeah, it was cool to see my work be read aloud and see because I only heard about the concepts of the other 6 screenwriters, so it was cool to see actually see parts of their scripts come to life. Yeah.
So were you kind of were the other students in your class British, or were they just the other NYU students who had also?
They were all American.
Okay. Because I wonder what the approach to film is in the UK and in Europe, because I feel at least from my perspective, in the US, we're very much going through this indie wave. I watched this 8-minute video about A24 yesterday, how they kind of just blew up out of nowhere when Spring Breakers came out. Before Spring Breakers, not a lot of people knew what A24 was. They used to just distribute films, but now they produce their own films, and they produced that show Beef on Netflix as well. And it was just kind of talking about how they've become so successful in terms of marketing, because they market mostly word of mouth and social media, and that's how they save a lot of money by being an indie company, but they make up for it by doing all the marketing themselves. So I don't know, I feel if you ask somebody on the street name a production company, they'd be A24. But I wonder what it's in the UK, where it's I don't know, is the focus on indie? Is it more focused on mainstream films Marvel and shit like that? Or I mean, I don't know, I'm not very well versed in terms of I don't
know. I feel the UK has its own thing going on. When I was there, I saw ads for movies I've never seen before. There was one with, I can't pronounce her last name, Freema, she played Martha in Doctor Who, and she has this film with Lily Allen where they're on the beach in Brighton or something, and I kept seeing ads for that. I was oh, that seems interesting.
Freema Guyman? Agerman?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Is it Laughing by the Sea in the...
Yeah. I think so, but I mean, according to my professor, at least with the screenwriters, they don't have the same strike going on,
the Writers
as
Guild
we do
strike
here. And I was talking to him about it, and he was yeah, the British writers would not have the guts to strike, which is interesting because British people love to strike. When I was there, the trains, okay, the trains were so annoying, first of all. Like, they were clean. I appreciate that, in comparison to New York, but they were always striking, always delayed. There was always something happening. Like, one time, I think one of them was derailed for some reason, and they only have, like, 6 lines. So, if you have to get somewhere, you're basically screwed, or you have to take the long way, which was frustrating, but yeah.
6 lines in like all of London?
I think so.
Wow, that's wild. I was gonna say something, but then I forgot what it was. Oh, I remember what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the strike and your reaction to it and how that makes you feel as somebody who wants to be a writer-director, knowing that the industry is so fickle and cruel to writers and directors that huge corporations are trying to, like, I don't know, from what I've heard, like the little research I've done on the strike, it's happening because basically writers are frustrated because they usually never go to set the whole time they're writing on a project, so that they don't have that like necessary experience to like learn and grow in that way and like feel connected with their actual work. And 2, they're basically like creating mini rooms instead of like a writer being employed for like 6 months or 6 months to a year on a show. They're like only employed for like a couple months, meaning that they have to find multiple different writers' rooms across a long period of time just to sustain themselves. And that sounds really frustrating. Like the other day I was just like, I would love to be a writer, but like if that was the industry I was like going straight into, like knowing that that's what I would be up against, it sounds really frustrating. So yeah, what's been your response to the strike, and like how does that make you feel, like knowing that the industry is, specifically the entertainment industry, film industry, is so messed up in that way?
I think I was surprised at how little rights writers have. Also, my research just comes from Drew Gooden's YouTube video about it.
I didn't realize he was a writer.
I don't think he does, but he like made a video about it. But yeah, I mean, it sucks, and it's sad that film is so corporate. I mean, I feel like I've known that, but to see the repercussions of it has been surprising because of how little writers are paid. Like, they're not like actors where every time the project is distributed, they get like a cut of how much
Residuals, yeah.
They don't get paid at all, which is crazy because like that's the whole concept of whatever show that they're making. But I feel like another thing that, this is a little unrelated, but another thing that has kind of affected me and jaded me about the industry is like so I have this favorite show. It's called The Owl House, and it was on Disney Channel. And
I see your posts about it.
yeah, I love Owl House. But out of nowhere, like the network just decided to cut the 3rd season down to 3 40 to 50-minute episodes instead of like a continued 3rd season with 20-minute episodes, which really fucked up the writing and just the production of the show. And I feel like the showrunners, they tried their best to work with what they had. But watching it, like, the finale just aired last month, and it does feel kind of rushed, and it sucks because I think the main reason they did that was because the creator was really pushing for queer representation, and they had that, and now it's very visible because the main relationship in that show is between 2 girls, and it's very explicitly stated. There's like non-binary characters, there's a bunch of other gay couples. It's cute. It's fun, yeah. But seeing how Disney really just tried their best to get rid of it was disheartening, and how the writers were treated. alongside the strike, it just really, it brings into perspective. Like, they don't really care about us. They just want to make money. Yeah, I guess that's why, I mean, I love writing, but I don't have to do it as a career because it's not super viable, at least at this point. I think the strike is working, though, from what I've last heard, so maybe, who knows? Who knows?
It's been going on for a while, yeah. What has been your biggest triumph in your career as a filmmaker?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like I have yet to be where I want to be, so...
You haven't even graduated, though, yet. You still have so much time.
Yeah, that's true. I think, like, I've really enjoyed making my own work above all, and last semester I worked really hard on this 2-minute animation to Kim Petra's Demons, and I still have to edit it in Adobe After Effects, but I was like spending every single day in the fucking editing lab, and it was so tedious, but it was my first time animating something, and I've always liked drawing. I don't want to go into animation, though, because that's another issue, because animators are not treated very well.
Mm-hmm.
I just, like, worked really hard on that, and delivered the finished product, even though it still needs some work, but I was really proud of that, and just being able to write and create your own things and come out with an actual finished product is really rewarding. So I guess that, and also my sophomore year, I worked with this like very small crew of 3 other people in our sight and sound filmmaking class, which is the beginner level, and then it's intermediate, and then the thesis thing. But we just like would work on our little films, and it was super fun to be able to, like I said, have that finished thing to look at. And yeah, I'm going to make my intermediate film this summer, so maybe that will be my greatest accomplishment for now, but it's still in the scripting stage currently. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. What's the genre? What's the plot?
That's a good question. For now, right currently, it's about this trans mask kid who has to go home to take care of his grandma, who's like being what's the word, like at home care or whatever. She's staying at
like
his,
not like hospice, but
yeah, it's not hospice, but it's like she's old and she can't take care of herself. So but the parents are going back to China to manage her estate and stuff. So he's coming back to his childhood home to take care of her for like a week. And I have it because I came up with the title first, and I thought it sounded really cool. And it's like Shenyun won't save you.
Oh, like the Shenyun dancers.
Like,
yeah.
Shenyun,
oh my god, I love that title.
They have like a cult thing that they follow.
I heard that.
So I was like, it'd be interesting if this grandma was in this cult, which is against like homosexuality and same-sex marriage, stuff like that. So I was like, this grandma is not gonna like that her grandkid is trans. Some conflicts there, but they end up finding some type of relatability, and they start doing weird shit together. Like I had that the kid like pushes his grandma, like the kid's with her, but they're like running down a hill together with the wheelchair, or like they dye each other's hair. I don't know, something like that. But the script is getting a little out of my control right now. I don't really know how to condense everything I want into 10 minutes or less.
That's the thing with script writing. Like, it goes through so many drafts and so many iterations, and like things get cut and things get added, and like it's a process like that. that like script I basically like forced you to help me write. So it's like, oh, you definitely have the technique, like you know how to write scripts and stuff like that. But like I like even though like I wrote it to submit to a program I didn't get into, but I still like the script and I want to like develop it into something. Like the goal is to like make it into a short eventually, but also I feel like maybe it could be a feature. Like who knows? Like that's the thing with like writing. But even like just getting those 15 pages was a little bit of a struggle. Like let alone like what you said, having to write like 90 pages for that class you took abroad. Sounds rough. Yeah, and I've never taken.
Actually wrote 123 pages.
That's like a 2 hour film. That's wild.
For me, it's always easiest to write the beginning, and it's actually really easy to write the beginning. But then when you actually get into it, especially like after the midpoint, and then you have to kind of scramble to tie all of the loose ends together into like some rewarding resolution, it's difficult. And I feel like when I was writing that feature, I had a lot of moments where I just couldn't write anymore and I didn't know where the story was going. Just having very intense writer's block. And for this short, I don't even know where I want to go with this. Because also the issue is I'm taking an experimental class this summer where I'm going to be producing this. But for now, my concept is more narrative, and I'm like, I don't know. I want to make it surreal, but I'm not sure how to blend the two elements where it's like weird but realistic, you know?
If you were to take like 2 or 3 films that already exist and like say it's like your film is like this film meets this film, like what would the films be? I'm getting Minari vibes. I don't know if you've ever seen Minari.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen Minari.
Would recommend. It's a very good film.
I was thinking like Taste of Tay. Taste of Tay, is that how you pronounce it? It's like this Japanese film about a family that moves to the countryside, and there's like a lot of surrealist imagery, I guess. Taste of Tea meets probably The Farewell, because there's a grandma.
That sounds amazing. Like I'm very interested to see where that goes, especially because it kind of seems like there's some like buddy, not like buddy cop, but like it's kind of that comedic element.
Yeah, and that's another issue because I've realized that I like writing comedy with my feature because it was mostly comedic. Before this, all I wrote was drama. It was all like Asian, trans, queer drama.
Write what you know.
That's true, but I was like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to write sad shit. I don't care about being Chinese anymore. There's so many Chinese movies that are out there right now that like, I'm just like, everything I want to write has already been done. Especially when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. I've seen it like 18 times at this point. I'm not even kidding.
Oh my god. I've seen it twice.
It's basically like my, what's the word? It would be my like life's work to create something like that. And it's already been done. But, oh yeah, so then I was like, okay, what else can I do? And then I just made a film or made the script about like the queer community and you know, whatever. And then I was like, I enjoy writing comedy more than drama because I mean there's drama in comedy too. But it's just more fun to make light of things that have hurt you or things that you've been through because I think there's inherent humor in darkness, which is why so much dark comedy is like popular. But yeah, I wanted it to be funny, but I don't know how to make it funny. Like grandmas are scary.
Well, I mean, that's interesting that you say that because I feel like I tend to lean towards comedy as well. Like, especially I feel like I'm trying to train myself to just like write down the simple things that happen to me that are just so funny. Like, objectively, like, if, like, most of the time, things that I forget have even happened to me, but, like, I'll just write them down and, like, know that from an outsider's perspective, that shit is hilarious. Like, it's so funny. But, yeah, but, I mean, it is hard to, like, develop a comedic sense of style and, like, not be cheesy, because I feel like I have, like, so many comedic influences, like, comedians I love, comedians whose work I've followed for years and years and years, and yet it's hard to get that to translate into a script, especially when there's so many parts, like, that need to be added to a script before it's the final product. But do you have any comedic influences that you're, like, leaning upon as you write the script, or?
I guess, I don't know. Not necessarily like comedians, but I really like shows like Always Sunny and BoJack Horseman and Parks and Rec, that type of stuff. Like, I guess they're all pretty different, but it's not like I feel like I'm not really drawing from one source. I guess it's more so inspiration from comedic things that have happened to me. Or like the possibility of like, oh, what if I'm imagining me and my grandma, what if we just like, you know, lit a little, you know? I'm trying to be quiet because my mom's out there. That'd be an interesting thing to do and see. But also, I don't know if I could put that in my film because I do want to have something I can show my mom.
No. Hey, you make a good point.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. My professor, when I was telling him I was nervous about my comedic writing, he was like, oh, well, it's just about putting your characters in these scenarios and seeing what happens. And I feel like that's how comedy comes across in real life too, because you never expect to be in like a humorous situation, and sometimes like for example, this one time I was walking home at like 4 a.m. and this guy stops me in the street, and he's like, I just landed from LA, like, do you want to hang out? Where did you come from? And I was like, my night is over, buddy. I am going home. I'm going to bed. I'm on many drugs right now. I can't talk to you.
Wait, was this in New York or Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it was in New York. It was not in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then he was like, "Oh, but you're so beautiful. Like, let's go somewhere. Where do you usually go?" And I was like, "Oh, I was in Brooklyn. But if you're into gay clubs or like gay bars, the West Village is right there. Like, leave me alone."
Just walk down the street.
Oh, but I want to go where you went. And he started following me, so I had to run home, which was scary, but now when I look back on it, I think I'm coping in a way with humor, but I'm like, it's really funny that he just kept being like, I'm from LA, like, do you want to hang out? Yeah, so it's like putting our characters in scenarios. I think that's been my philosophy, just seeing how far I can take something, or like, how weird something can get based on the setup of it.
You were your own character in your own scenario. Do you ever just like I don't know if this is like a filmmaker brain thing, or like, do you ever just like witness yourself experiencing something but like from an out of body perspective, and you just like imagine like all the cameras and like you just know like what would have been the shot breakdown of that interaction?
It'd be like two shot over the shoulder, over the shoulder of man, over the shoulder of me, and then like tracking as I run. He would have like a little vlogging camera, and like, I don't know what someone from LA wears, like
stealth wealth.
T-shirt and cargo shorts.
No, but that's hilarious. I was going to ask about work you're most proud of, but that's kind of, you talked about that with the last project you just mentioned, the thing you animated. By the way, is there a way for people to watch your work?
Oh yeah, I have a website. It's like googlesites.com. My Instagram is mothgob. You can follow me there, and my site is sites.google.com/view/mothgob. Yes. I need to actually get a URL, but that's like not I have not been thinking about that at all.
All right. So I want to have one question I ask all of my guests at the end of my episodes, and it is, when people think of your art, what do you want them to think?
This is weird. But I can get into it.
Go for it.
No, that's what I want them to think.
Oh! This is weird, but I can get into it. Okay. I like that.
I think that's actually what one of the actors that read my script said. He's this very judgmental guy from BU, first of all. Like, he's a white gay guy. Apparently he was walking to like this coffee shop with this other actor, and she told me this, and he was just like, at first I was like, this is really weird, I don't really get it, but then the more I learned about the concept and like what the characters were about, I was like, oh, this makes sense, like this is actually pretty cool. And I felt very good about that because he was very judgmental to everybody's scripts, but he liked mine. So I'm just gonna take that point for my ego.
You should. And I feel like with at least the work of yours that I've read, I've definitely have had that feeling. Like, this is very weird, but I could get into it. It's like,
okay, good. I'm just weird, you know? I don't like to, I'm not like other girls.
You're not like other thems.
Yeah, I'm not like other they thems.
And would you look at that? One episode of Would You Give Me a Stagehand down the hatch. Special thanks to Cash O'Brien for making the intro, outro, and transition sounds for the podcast, and to Marg Zhang for being my first guest. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.